are missing. Dozens of local and international search and rescue teams are working to recover bodies from under the rubble, or those washed ashore into the muddy sea. Authorities are still trying to understand the scale of the destruction.
The team assigned by the government to take stock of the damages stated that the total number of buildings in the city is about 6,142, of which the total number of damaged buildings is 1,500. 891 buildings were completely destroyed, 211 were partially destroyed, and about 398 were submerged in the mud.
The UN Migration Agency says more than 38,000 people have been displaced in the east. And Libya's political situation, with two rival administrations, has not made things easy. Local authorities say they are now working on a complete or partial evacuation plan for the city of Derna. But with two governments, the relief effort has been chaotic, and accurate information hard to come by. People here say more needs to be done to help those in need.
We still do not know anything. We are hearing rumors. Some are trying to reassure us. Others are saying you need to leave the city. We have no water and no resources.
Damaged roads have made it difficult for aid to enter the city. People are still trying to come to terms with what happened here. Those who remain in the city are in desperate need of help. They hope it comes soon. Malik Traina, Al Jazeera, Tripoli.
And Al Jazeera's Tamed Al-Samadi has more from Derna.
I'm in one of the areas most affected by the storm, which has caused so much destruction across the city of Derna. As the camera pans, you can see this area, which was once packed with roads and residential buildings, is now completely gutted by the floods. Everything was leveled to the ground, then washed away to the sea. This is the 7th day after the disaster, but rescue teams are still searching for survivors because thousands are still unaccounted for, and many are believed to be buried under the rubble. I'm now joined by a member of one of the search and rescue teams operating on the ground, who will give us an update.
I've been working on this area for 3 days. We managed to recover many bodies from under the rubble, as most of the buildings were destroyed. On Saturday, we succeeded in finding 7 survivors of the same family, who were trapped under the rubble, and 3 other survivors from another family. We are racing against time. But there could still be more than 500 bodies under the rubble in this area alone. We are in the very middle of the city of Derna. The total number of deaths is high, very high in fact.
This is the latest as we speak. Rescue operations are still going on. The search for survivors has not stopped. But it must be noted that more teams have been deployed along the seashore, searching for victims who were washed away while fleeing in their cars when the disaster struck the city. For now, this search and rescue mission continues both on land and at sea.
Mesa Al-Ghirbawi is the country director for the World Food Programme in Libya, and she describes how her team is responding to the situation.
Today at 1 o'clock in the morning, actually from Derna, Al-Berda and Susa, a visit, interagency visit. For the time being, we have managed to reach out 10,000 affected people across 5 locations. We started with the IDPs in Benghazi, and then we moved to the IDPs, or the most affected population, in Derna, and then Chaknis, Charuba, and finally Susa. And as we speak, we have distribution ongoing in Susa. Plus also we are targeting, as we speak, 5 other locations that has been heavily impacted by the Hurricane Daniel. Currently, we are utilizing a pre-positioned tool, which was supposed to go actually to the south of Libya, because we were exiting out of emergency in Libya. So I'm utilizing whatever food I have on the ground. We are, as we speak, purchasing, and we have just been appealing to all the donors to provide us with an urgent $6.5 million to respond initially for 100,000 beneficiaries in the first 3 months. And the numbers might be on the rise due to the lack of information as we speak.
To other news now, the European Commission President has called on the EU to unite and deal with the migrant crisis. Ursula von der Leyen is on the Italian island of Lampedusa, which has received an unprecedented number of asylum seekers. The United Nations says 8,500 people arrived on the island this week alone. That is more than the entire population of the island. Italy's Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, has promised tougher measures to deal with the influx. Von der Leyen says the EU needs to step up its efforts to stop traffickers.
Prime Minister Meloni and I are here today to offer a coordinated response by the Italian and European authorities. And I want to be very clear. We have an obligation as part of the international community. We have fulfilled it in the past and we will do so today and in the future. But we will decide who comes to the European Union and under what circumstances, and not the smugglers and traffickers.
Italy's southernmost island is 145 kilometers off the coast of Tunisia and has long been a landing point for people crossing from North Africa. Many of the latest arrivals have been making the dangerous journey by boat from Tunisia. More than 127,000 migrants have arrived on Italy's shores so far this year. That is almost double the same period last year. The European Union says the migrants are mainly from Ivory Coast, Egypt and Guinea and are fleeing violence and economic turmoil. Harry Fawcett has more from Lampedusa.
Ursula von der Leyen did speak about potential further action by the EU in terms of naval activity. She said maybe buttressing some of it or even some new missions as well. But I think it would be a big stretch to think that she would sanction the kind of thing that Giorgia Meloni was talking about, which was sending boats straight back, given that even among her own party, people accept that there may be 10% of genuine asylum seekers among those coming to these shores. Sending them straight back to potentially dangerous territories would be a big stretch for the EU to accept. However, Giorgia Meloni's point, one of the major points she made was that this is a European frontier, not just an Italian one, requiring a European solution. That is something that Ursula von der Leyen very much echoed. Questions, though, in her 10-point plan, exactly what all of the language means, when, what kind of timetable, what kind of numbers, what kind of efficacy, all of that remains to be consolidated, really. Away from the politics, though, let's just speak about the humanitarian situation currently after that massive surge last week. I'm joined by Francesca Basile, who is the Red Cross of Italy's head of migration. You've obviously been focused on this for some months. Had you ever seen anything like what happened last week, and how does the situation now on Sunday compare to what you saw then?
Well, as Italian Red Cross, we started managing the reception center here in Lampedusa at the beginning of June, and this was the higher peak that we reached during our period here in the island. It's important not to only think to the record or link to the numbers, but it's very important to remember that besides this number, there are people. So what we did from the very first moment, and no matter how many people we received, we can say that in one day we hosted inside the reception center more than 6,000 people that got to the island with more than 100 search and rescue events. What we did is to try to respond to their basic needs, even if it was challenging, because managing with so many people together isn't easy, and also to focus on vulnerabilities from the very beginning.
5 Palestinians have been injured after Israeli forces attacked them as they were protesting at several points along the border between Gaza and Israel. The demonstrations were against Israeli soldiers violently confronting Palestinian worshippers near the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound earlier on Sunday. Israel has also targeted journalists covering the protests. Yumna El-Said reports from Gaza.
Hundreds of Palestinian young men, of whom they call themselves the Revolutionary Youth, have stormed the Gaza-Israeli border from northern to the southern parts of the Strip in different areas. These protesters have put tires on fire to obscure the vision of the Israeli snipers deployed along the separation fence of the borders. They have also thrown some explosive devices at the fence and